Wheat Don't Tell Me is recorded in front of a live brewery audience the third Thursday of every month at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington.
Wheat Don't Tell Me you're at Mountain Lakes with all of your friends. Wheat Don't Tell Me you're gonna start talking about craft beer again. We're cracking wise on random craft beer news. Hanging out with brewers, owners, and maltsters, doing interviews. It's the Wheat Show, the Wheat Show, the Wheat Show, the Wheat Show. It's the Wheat Show, the Wheat Show, the Wheat Show, the Wheat Show.
From the Brewhouse stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington, this is Wheat Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast. You know, Chris, when I was a kid, I used to play a lot of D at D with my family.
Wait a minute. Do you mean like D and D?
No, this was D at D. At family picnics, someone would shout, "It's time for a little D at D." I would run around the yard while folks threw lawn darts at me. I never really enjoyed darts at Dave. I'm Dave Basaraba, and here as always is your host, Chris Cindric!
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you, everybody. We are rolling the dice tonight, and coming up big, yes, Spokane's very own Natural 20 Brewing's Reese Carlson is our special guest tonight. Welcome, Reese.
Woo!
Thank you. Can I turn the mic on?
And as always, I'm joined by Dave Basaraba and Tim Hilton of Mountain Lakes Brewing Company. Well, Tim and Dave, what is the latest news with the Spokane craft beer scene and Mountain Lakes?
Well, we just brewed our Lester Cup beer. Summer Lester Cup starts August 1st. And what do we brew, Tim?
We brewed the first half of a Radler. We sort of did a strong, like a Helles, a strong Helles,
Right.
and then we're going to put in basically a barrel worth of soda.
Yeah.
So
it's not going to be spiked, so it won't be a hard like base or lemon base. It'll be just soda.
Yep, it's just going to be it's going to be a lemon lime soda.
Nice.
Yep. And so
Just because grapefruit soda syrup was proving to be difficult to find, lemon lime was readily available.
Oh. I just learned a new name for Radlers. They're also called in northern Germany like Osterwasser. Have you heard of that?
No. Osterwasser, like Austrian water?
I can't. I'm probably getting the first part wrong, but it's named after a river, the color of the river or something like that. And then northern Germany, they called it that, like the Osterwasser. And then in the southern part, it was known as a Radler.
Is the Radler?
Yeah.
Cool.
Which I was.
And where does the Radler name come from? The bike chains going up the mountain? Did you know that?
There's a bunch of stories.
Well, that's
about
the true
Radler.
one. I just gave you the true one.
So.
I heard it was named after a guy, right? And that was his nickname?
He was totally rad.
Right? No, it was a Radler because he would,
He was a
train up going up the hills.
One of the stories, they have bike events, and that there was a guy who was running out of beer, and then he added the lemonade to the beer to make it go longer because so many people were there, and that's how the Radler was formed, although some people say it's been in existence forever. When I was a kid living in Germany, we had Radlers, and the first time I ever had a Radler, I was playing on a German soccer team, and our coach gave it to us, and I was like, "What is this?" And he said, "It's Radler," and he didn't speak the best English, and I was like, "What's a Radler?" And they're like, "A bicycle, like it's your training wheels to teach you how to drink." And so that's how I was introduced to it when I was a kid, was the kids drank it because they didn't like the taste of beer, and that smoothed out the bitterness of the beer and made it drinkable, and that made sense to me, but what do I know?
I'm going to go back to my story and just say that was the truth.
That was the truth.
And now you hear the rest of the story.
We thought we had to add a rattlesnake to the beer
Ah.
at some point.
Going to be a rattler.
Rattler.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, to start the show off, we like to ask important people who work in the craft beer industry questions about what they do and how they do it. It's called Not My Beer. Please welcome tonight's Not My Beer guest from Natural 20 Brewing, owner and brewer Reese Carlson.
Thank you.
Well, Reese, it's great to have you on the show. There's a lot going on with Natural 20, which we'll get into tonight. and we're excited to find out more about what's developing. But let's kind of start at the beginning. What's the backstory of Natural 20 Brewing? How did you enter into the brewing scene and eventually decide to open up a brewery here in Spokane?
I mean, it's kind of both a long and short story. My wife and I own the brewery. We went to Ireland for our honeymoon and absolutely just fell in love with the pub atmosphere. And so we came back and said, hey, why don't we put together like a 5-year plan, and we can try and figure out how we can either open a pub or a brewery. I had just started homebrewing at the time. And as we put that plan in place, I had just made a job transition, and one of my friends is like, hey, he owned a brewery, and he's like, hey, why don't you come down, hang out for a brew day, and maybe I can, if you want to pick up a few shifts or something, we can talk about that. And it was about halfway through the brew day, he's like, so you want to buy a brewery? And this was 2 weeks after we'd gotten back from our honeymoon, so we'd had our 5-year plan for 2 weeks, and we're like, buy it? And he's like, yeah, we just don't want to do it anymore. It's not really great for our retirement plan, so you want to buy it? So immediately I said, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. So we purchased what was English Setter Brewing Company, and that was in 2018. And given that we had no idea what we were doing running a brewery, I'd managed before. My wife has worked in the service industry for most of her adult life. We really didn't know how to run a brewery. So we spent a couple years fooling around, trying to figure out what we were doing. And we got comfortable with it and said, okay, now that we've made all the mistakes on a brand that's not really our thing, let's rebrand, let's do a full remodel and come up with what we want as a brewery. So we rebranded to Natural 20 about 3.5 years ago. I can't count.
Right.
My wife knows I don't remember what year we got married either. So, and so we rebranded Natural 20 shortly after that.
This is a recording, so it will... We should figure out that date and edit it in right there.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm pretty sure it's the 3rd of October. 3rd of October? October 3rd. 2015, yeah, I think. Anyways, so we rebranded, and then last year our lease had been coming up, so we said, hey, let's move the brewery. And so we moved the Taproom to a new location in the valley on Sprague, and that kind of kicked off a lot of other things.
Right. So for the first year and a half or so, you just stayed as English Setter. Is that right? You kept the name. And,
yeah, we thought it was a great opportunity to make a bunch of mistakes.
Right. And be like, yeah, now we're just ruining their recipes. Yeah.
Essentially, it wasn't even like that. We learned how to make beer commercially because I went from 5 gallons to I did one batch on a really exciting 15-gallon system that I got, and I did one batch, and then I bought a brewery that's a 3-barrel batch. And so that kettle's actually still sitting in my garage being used once. But we learned what we were doing professionally on the brew side, and we also just learned in terms of running a brewery, what keeps people interested, what keeps people coming back. Is it about beer? Is it about food? Is it about creating an atmosphere? And really just kind of screwed around until we figured out what we liked doing and what our clientele liked doing before we moved forward with the brand that actually mattered to us.
Right.
Would you mind leaving just a Post-it note with the answers to those?
Yeah, I can make that happen.
So then the original location was off Sullivan, kind of north.
Yeah, and it was in the industrial park
right.
area. So our original plan was like, yeah, let's try to cater to like these people getting off work, and we found the people who want to get off work want to drink like Miller Lite working in the industrial park. So that didn't work terribly well.
No, and so then
so you didn't brew Miller Lite?
No.
Yeah.
No, I'd rather just drink water.
Yeah. So then you stayed at English Setter, but you changed to Natural 20 while you were still at the Sullivan location, correct?
Yeah. So we were there for a couple more years after that rebrand.
And then just tell us a little bit about the decision to move where you are now, and then also how the background behind Natural 20, the name that you have.
Okay, so I mean, when we decided to move, we had gotten done with our lease there, and we said this is just not a good location to attract the like neighborhood clientele that we want. And so we found a place that was, right in the middle of like a residential zone and like a business zone in the valley. And so we were thinking like, let's give ourselves 2 months, find a new location. It took us about 20 minutes to find a location we fell in love with. So you can tell my time scales are always a little off. And so we made the decision and started the move process. But when the name is actually kind of fun. If anyone has played D&D in the audience or Dungeons & Dragons, there we go. Those are my people.
Darts at Dave?
No? Not quite no. I'll throw stuff at you, Dave, but it's not quite a game anymore. So Dungeons & Dragons is a game where you roll a lot of dice, and one of the dice you roll most frequently is a 20-sided die. And when you roll a 20 on a 20-sided die, regardless of the odds, it's an automatic success. And so that was it was pitched to me by a friend. He's like, you should do that. And I was like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. And so we took that and ran with it, and it turned out great. Us converting to a full gaming community like really opened up a lot of doors.
And that's kind of your environment, right? You have a significant number of patrons that come that are in the game world. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I'd say probably, I don't use the term nerd derogatorily. I use it as a term of passion. But like the nerd community makes up probably 80-90% of our clientele. And in my belief, everyone's a nerd about something. If you like fantasy football, guess what? You're a nerd. But like we have people who are into anime, tabletop games, video games, board games. They could be just really passionate about like certain fandoms, like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Game of Thrones or Star Trek, which I know nothing about.
Sort of like Brian and Chris Barton. They're really into Star Trek. They love it so much. I can't believe he's not wearing a Star Trek shirt right now.
Yeah, he does. He likes the Captain Kirk.
I'm pretty sure it was not Star Trek. It was Battlestar Galactica. Was that it?
Yeah.
Is that
That's
what they were
right, Battlestar Galactica.
He always
That was our
wears
big
those
show.
shirts. The original Battlestar, though, right? Not the remake Battlestar Galactica.
With
Brian
Luke,
just quit and walked out the door.
I think he really likes Luke Kenobi. It's his favorite person.
Yeah.
Right?
Dark Mater.
Dark.
I thought it was Dumbledore Calrissian.
Yes,
Yeah.
Dumbledore Calrissian. That is my favorite character.
100% of the Mountain Lake staff are nerds. Did you know that?
I didn't actually.
100%.
That's wonderful. Okay.
100%.
Honestly, you find such a huge crossover of craft beer fans and nerds. Like it almost goes hand in hand. I'd say probably 75% of people who like craft beer are also nerds about something. Right. So,
yeah,
we're super cool in every way. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, we were talking because when I was asked about earlier when we chatted, and I was telling about I played Dungeons and Dragons when I was 12 and 13, and it was 1981, and my main character that I had was an assassin named Hinckley. Hinckley was named after the guy who shot President Reagan in 1981, and I think he just got out of jail yesterday.
He did.
He has like a record contract or something. He's he's a musician.
Is he?
And playing publicly in clubs and such.
Right. But I said I can only imagine if I stuck with D&D and then I have the beer drinking passion I have. I mean, shit, I'd be at your brewery all the time.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. And then the advent of so many different TV shows that worked gaming into them. Stranger Things being one of the largest.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cyclical thing. Like D&D is about TV shows, and TV shows are about like D&D.
Yes.
I mean, if you've
watched the '70s show or
yeah. Or even you play D&D, and so many inspirations come from like other popular culture mediums. And so I mean, I always joke that like nothing doesn't touch gaming because heck, I've made the Office jokes in D&D, and it like becomes a big deal and a big reference. And
yep, I think what it is, you're playing D&D, and you're thinking about getting into brewing, and you're like, this is a good way to make sure a girl never talks to me.
Actually, the first thing my wife said to me, we were in a movie together, and we were going to see the James Bond movie, and the Hobbit trailer came on.
Yeah.
And she literally, we were with a group of friends, and so we had just met that night, and she leans over to me and goes, "Have you ever played D&D?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Whoa.
Yes, I have.
That was but. And he made a little ring out of the straw from his soda.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Will you marry me?
You marry me right now. Let's do this."
That was it. And that's Jackie.
Yes, and she's not with us tonight. She's hosting trivia where I normally am on Thursday nights. We have a huge trivia following in our Valley location, and so she's taking care of that while I get to be here and drink beer.
Is your following as big as our crowd?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear that, world? There we go. All right, well, we're excited that you're here. And so you're gaming. What's like your thing? How did you got into gaming at a young age? What's your primary games that you like to play? And we talked about this. I was looking up, like, what do you call them? Is it a gamer? Are they tabletop gamer? Because there's so many realms within gaming, right?
Right,
So,
and I use the term kind of interchangeably as gamer, because that could be video games, that could be tabletop games, board games, card games. Anything that is a game, I would consider you a gamer. So I've played D&D since I was about 12. And so going from that, I love RPGs on a video game platform. I like to be able to play games with friends. I love games with lots of pieces, like tabletop games with lots of pieces.
Why lots of pieces?
I have no idea. They're just so fun.
Like Life has a lot of pieces.
Oh, no, I want like really intricate, like,
okay.
like die-cast weird stuff.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah. All right.
Something that if I lose, I have to go buy the whole game over again.
Not Candyland.
No.
Shoots and ladders.
I was just gonna say, I really love Shoots and Ladders. It's,
I mean, I'm up for a good game of Shoots and Ladders.
yeah, I know. It's good for a brain my size.
Yeah.
It's like,
And then how big is the gaming community in Spokane? Is it like considerable?
So, if you look at it from a surface level, it doesn't look, you don't notice a lot of people doing that kind of thing. But as you get into it, you realize how many people love to do stuff in one way, shape, or form to love to game. You think of, your typical pop culture idea of like what a person who plays video games look like. And then you realize, no, it's like 80% of the people out there have picked up and played a video game and enjoyed it at some point and are willing to do it again. In the same way that like tabletop games are even more approachable. And Dungeons and Dragons, even so, is becoming more and more approachable with the new versions. I would say there's a huge population that's completely unacknowledged in the Spokane area. There's a few gamer bars in town, but like having a place to go to and spend time has been a bit of a challenge. I mean, even growing up in Spokane, I felt a little bit outcast by that because there wasn't a place like that. And so I guess that was kind of one of the reasons we switched to doing this kind of thing.
when I was younger, it started to become like I used to go down to the baseball card shop, and baseball cards, basketball cards, all that sort of thing I was sort of into when I was 10, 12, 13. Pretty soon, Magic the Gathering had like taken over my card shop that I
Right.
used to go down to, and I was like, "What is this? Give me a deck. Let's figure this out." And then pretty much I was going down there selling baseball cards to buy Magic cards.
Right. Yeah. I
It
mean,
had come full circle.
the trading card game, I think, the trading card games really kind of paved the way for a lot of people, like in the mainstream audience, to start understanding like nerd fandom, and so I think that really kind of broke the seal for a lot of people. And then the D&D and everything else just kind of like started flooding out. I mean, if I was to ask somebody, especially somebody over the age of like 18, what is D&D or what is Dungeons & Dragons 15, 20 years ago, you probably wouldn't find more than about 4 people who could answer the question out of a group of 20. Whereas now if you say D&D or Dungeons & Dragons, at least probably 80% of the crowd could at least explain, it's a game with swords and dragons and,
Yeah.
and fighting and stuff like that.
And then I just duck immediately because they're throwing darts at Jade.
Yeah, well...
So tell us a little bit about the styles of beers that you brew, and then you've got some great names for beers. Let's talk about that. So maybe styles first, and then names.
So I mean, we try to focus as much as we can on like English, Irish, Scottish style beer, as well as the new American styles. So like we have like a raspberry blonde, and we like to mess around with like kettle sours as well as barrel sours. So we kind of hit all over the board. We just try to focus on this on our staple stuff, at least on our traditional English, Irish, Scottish style beers. But we're not afraid to kind of experiment because we from the homebrewing background, that's always been kind of like a thing, is like you can do weird things and get away with it.
Right.
So like we have a new another blonde coming out that's made with a quike yeast, which is just kind of a fun thing to mess around with.
It attenuates quite rapidly and highly.
Yeah.
Like, what'd you get it down to?
It went down to 0.001, I think.
Yeah, it eats all the malt, and it's a sparkling cider.
Yeah. It's a fun thing to mess around with, and so like I love the fact that I can also turn a beer around in like 6 days.
Look at you, capitalist.
No, that's called poor planning, actually. But when it comes to the names for our beers, our strategy, since I was homebrewing, because I've always been a huge nerd about it, I like to specifically like choose a fandom to pull a name from. So like we'll choose like a Lord of the Rings name or a Star Wars name. And then we'll create a name that if you don't get the reference, it just sounds like a cool beer name, like something you'd see in the store, and you're like, oh, that's a fun beer name. But if you get the reference, you're like, oh, okay, this is great. So all of our reds are named after mythological weapons. So like the most recent one we had was Glamdring, which is Gandalf's sword in Lord of the Rings.
Because it draws blood?
No, just because it's delicious.
Oh.
No,
I was thinking of Red Connection.
It actually became a thing because we started off with doing a beer called Grabthar's Hammer, which is an imperial red. And Grabthar's Hammer is probably one of the more obscure references. There was a movie back in the 90s called Galaxy Quest with Tim Allen. Oh, yeah? Yeah, and so it's a reference to, the actor's name. He just passed away a couple years ago. Yeah, Alan Rickman, his character, he had this great line, by the Sons of War band, by Grothar's hammer, you shall be avenged. And so that's where that name came from, and we've had that beer around now for 3 years, and people all now know the reference, and Tim Allen probably owes me money with how many people have gone to watch that movie.
That's awesome,
since
yeah.
Bring it back up.
He's like, all of a sudden our movie is really popular on Netflix again. Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah. Do you have a Buckaroo Banzai thing? You got anything on?
I don't have a Buckaroo Banzai yet, no.
Maybe down the line, maybe. And what other names?
So, we have a Raspberry Blonde that's incredibly popular this time of year, and so we have the Raspberry Blonde, and then we also do a shandy version of it. We shandy it at the tap. And so the Raspberry Blonde is called Flossed in Paradise, which is a reference from The Fifth Element. And so, when that came out, I'd gotten this great skin-tight leopard print leotard and this great wig, so I looked like Ruby Rod from the movie.
So it looks like the leotard you're currently wearing?
Exactly, yes. I do have the wig in my car. I can go get it. And then the shandy version we call Multipass, again being the same, reference to the same movie. But all of our Scotch ales are named after different dwarven names from different franchises. So our staple one is Kazad, which is a Lord of the Rings reference. And then we just tried out a new recipe for a different Scottish ale, and so it was called Kal Shirak, which is from Dragon Age.
I don't know that one.
That's a video game franchise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Learning lots tonight. I'm like, woo, man.
I can throw a lot of information real quick. Just.
And so then your patrons, a little bit about that, because I think one of the things that happens in the pub environment is people find their third home, and creating a place that's safe for people to feel welcomed and comfortable. You're doing that, right? And tell us a bit about your patrons and also your Mug Club membership.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that it really is like a second home. The word the reference to Cheers gets thrown around a lot. You walk in and it's like, I'm Reese and Brian and whatever. You walk in and it seems like half the room knows your name, even if you're just not even a Mug Club member.
I think that's why we fell in love with craft beer.
100%.
All of the breweries that I grew up in college with, I'd walk in, they'd know us. They'd treat us like friends.
Well, it's kind of a joke on the weekends. Every now and then, me and my wife will want to go out, and it's like we want to do something that doesn't relate to work, so we have to go someplace we've never gone before and as far away from Spokane Brewery as possible, because we walk into any place
it's like
and
a winery in Snohomish.
Yeah, because that's probably the closest.
No one will recognize you.
That's about as far as we have to go if we want to find somebody who we don't know. It's kind of funny. But so our patrons are just dedicated people. I would say that probably 70 to 80% of our revenue comes from people who are there 3-4 times a week. We have a 49-person capacity at our Valley location, and we have a 200-plus person Mug Club with a waiting list, and they're just there all the time, which I'm not complaining about in the slightest. It's a great thing.
Yep.
And it's fun because we have great beer tenders, but they don't have to do a damn thing. Because the people walk in and it's like, oh, you gotta try this beer. We have a lounge area up front, and that area is just always full of Mug Club members who are telling every person who walks by, get
What
this,
beer
try
to have.
this. Yeah.
Yep.
I kind of understand the belonging thing. I walk in here and I hear them all go like, oh, fuck, Cindric. But at least I'm recognized. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you're recognized.
Yeah.
It's all about the fact that they don't know your name, right?
God damn
Yeah.
it. I'm like, hey, I'm helping pour tonight. Uh-huh.
We're closed is just our greeting.
Yeah.
We're closed!
I was just watching Cheers the other day, and it was that episode where Diane was upset that when Norm comes in, everyone yells Norm, and when she comes in, nobody says anything. Yeah. Do you remember that? Yeah. And so she's like, I'm going to try this again, and she goes out, and she comes back in, and as soon as she comes in, they all yell, Norm.
So you've got some exciting things. You're expanding. You're moving to a second location, not a new location. So tell us a little bit about that venture
So it's kind of a weird story, to be honest. When we moved out of our location on Sullivan, our original location, we had been brewing and had the tap room in the same location. And so we looked at some of the other breweries in the valley, and we're like, hey, a lot of these, 2 or 3 of these places just have a tap room, and then they brew off their personal property. I have a 40 by 40 shop on my backyard. Why am I not doing anything with it? It's storing all my parents' crap, but I'm not doing anything productive with it, I guess I should say. And so I said, let's look at clearing that out and put a brewery in there. And so we did the move of the tap room, and then I was like, cool, we still got a couple months. I can figure out the move of the brewery. And so I started getting everything cleared out, and I submitted the paperwork to LCB. LCB is like, awesome, this is all great. And it goes to the city, and the city's like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're 3 blocks away, there's another brewery doing the same thing. 4 blocks the other direction, there's another brewery doing the same thing. And they're like, no. And so we're like, okay, so we don't have a place to make beer, and we just set up a new tap room. We probably have to figure that out. So we started looking for a place to produce, the hope being we could find a place that was either low enough cost or a place that was large enough to put a tiny tap room, at least to recuperate rent. And so we started poking around, and then I heard that the Hidden Mother was going to be closing down permanently, and I was like, man, that really sucks, but I'd love to get like some of their equipment or something. So I shot a message to Mike, and I'm like, hey, I know that this is probably like way beyond what I could possibly afford, but can we come by and like look around, see what the equipment is, maybe like look at the space if you guys are abandoning a lease or something like that. And he's like, yeah, I want you to come down. So we went down and had a couple beers, and I was talking about, oh yeah, this is great. We'd love to look at maybe taking some of this. And he's, talking to me a little bit about like the pricing, and like we talked about a number, and I was like, I can do that. And by that I mean I can just take everything and move in here. And so we essentially made the decision, we're opening a second tap room in downtown Spokane, utilizing that brew space, utilizing their brew system, and basically taking over the art piece that is that tap room he put together, because it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, so much work went into that tap room. He literally cut down trees to make the bars and the walls and the chairs. Like, it was a really cool thing. And so me and Mike worked really closely to make sure him and his partners were happy to pass it off to us to kind of continue that dream for him. And so we're hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll be open and pouring beer and serving food, and have a private game room now. And
the new brewery, 20 Mothers.
Right, yeah. All natural.
All natural 20 Mothers. Yeah.
So that's super exciting. How about with opportunities and challenges with that? What are your hopes with it? And do you have any anxieties or other things?
I mean, I'm really excited. I grew up in Spokane, and so to be able to be downtown in the heart of Spokane is a really exciting thing, especially being able to maintain our valley presence as well, because I don't want to feel like we're abandoning those people out there, because we have set up a great space that's very neighborhood-y. And so be able to kind of spread what we're doing as a safe place for gamers to come and feel welcome and accepted and drink craft beer and hang out and spend time to another area of the city is... honestly, it's beyond a dream come true. We didn't ever think we'd go this far, especially this fast.
And it seems like with all the growth that's happening there, everything that goes on at the convention center already, the podium, the new soccer stadium that's going in, you're kind of in a prime location for people to come through your place.
Yeah, it honestly feels like an absolute dream. The fact that we're a block from the podium and the arena, and just a few blocks from the convention center and the park, which. We host a lot of Pokemon Go events, and we're all nerds. We play Pokemon Go like every weekend. So I mean, it really is the best opportunity that I could possibly be walking into.
And there's a guy I know. He works at the podium every now and then, and he's a big beer drinker, Dave Cook. If you don't know him, you will.
Okay.
As soon as you open, especially if you start having music events.
He has a very discerning palate.
Yeah.
A very discerning
He and
palate.
Frida and Olivia and Julian will probably be, stopping by.
Yeah, and that is something we hope to be able to continue and pick up and do, because I know Hidden Mother did a lot of music events, and it's a great place set up for it. And we would like to be able to do that. It won't be like our primary focus as we get started, but it's something we want to work ourselves into.
So what else should people know? What have we not covered that you want to talk or tell people about with Natural 20?
I guess like the biggest thing I feel like with Natural 20 is it's not just about the beer or the games. It's really about the experience. We sell an experience where people get to come in and spend time and really find their place. It's rare in both the craft beer and gaming community. The Spokane craft beer scene is amazing. I couldn't imagine ever owning a brewery in another area besides Spokane, because every single one of the breweries is absolutely amazing because they're accepting and willing to work with people and talk to people. I think we've all been to a craft brewery somewhere else where you walk in and you say, well, this is my favorite style of beer. And they're like, well, we don't make that kind of beer. They give you snark about it. And so in the gaming world, we call that gatekeeping. It's preventing people from enjoying the experience that you offer because they don't like the same things you like. And then you have that experience in craft beer, and you can have that experience in gaming too. And I've had that experience in gaming even here in Spokane. trying to go into like a beer bar or a gaming bar in Spokane and being treated that way because I wasn't into Fortnite or something like that. And it's like, for one, you're pushing away business, but like it's just rude. Like, don't be an asshole. Right. So we really, really, really hammer that not only to our employees, like you can't do that, but also, our customers just kind of get it. Like it's meant to be an inclusive space, not an exclusive space.
That's why I think you were smart to choose beer for that, because beer has always been the inclusive alcoholic beverage. It's the community building. That's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
A common person's drink. And,
yes.
Common places.
Everyone can. There's a beer for everyone, so drink every beer.
Right, and so I mean, a really good example of that is we kind of had to make a decision. We hit 100 people on our mug club, and we're like, okay, well, we capped it at 100 people, and we'd never hit that number.
We just kept putting more hooks up.
Well, and that was our thing. Is we talked about it. It's like, what do we lose, and what does anyone lose by including more people in that experience? We had to change our format of how we run things. It was no longer a renews on the first of every year. It was no longer a limited number.
We just take their credit card and we charge it whenever we want.
Yeah, that sounds like that's a good time.
It's been financially viable.
And so the first thing we said is like, okay, so your renewal date is whenever you want it.
Yep.
And instead of getting this year's mug, your mug levels up. So you take your glass mug home on your first year, and then you get a ceramic one.
I'll cut this out.
And then what's the third year?
And then on your third year, you get a Viking drinking horn made out of ox horn.
Oh.
So we don't know what the fourth year's yet. I'm thinking I might just have to serve people beer into my hands at that point. Like, I got to do better than an ox horn.
It's a Perone! You get a Perone!
This fermenter is for you now.
Eventually, it's solid gold.
That's right. Yeah.
No, so I mean, it's been one of those things that So again, we're at 200 people we currently have a waiting list more because no one can get glassware right now. And so I didn't want to sell more mugs without giving them a mug, but we try to make everybody happy, and we actually offer a monthly mug club option now too, where it's just a recurring $10 a month charge, because we have a lot of folks who come in from the service and they're going to be here 8 months. I don't want to pay for a whole year, and it's like cool.
That's true, yeah.
Hang out.
That's a good idea. I like that idea.
Well, Reese, it has been wonderful talking with you about the great things happening at Natural 20 Brewing. However, we have also invited you here tonight to play a little game we're calling Natural 20 Meet Natural Light.
Oh, boy.
Dave is going to read you 3 questions related to Natural Light beer. Answer 2 of the 3 questions successfully, and you'll win a prize for one of our audience members, which is free beer in a pint glass. Dave, who is Reese playing for tonight?
Drum roll, please. Anita.
There she is. So you'll be playing for her. Good luck with this.
I'm going to need it.
All right, are you ready to play? Here's your first question.
Okay.
True or false? Natural Light was Anheuser's first light beer product.
I'm going to say false.
Are you sure?
You should think about that one a little bit.
There's only one other answer.
I'm still going to say false, I guess.
Okay, well, he's got you in the hole, Anita.
He's got you in the hole.
It is. Following the launch of Miller Lite in 1975, Anheuser-Busch released Natural Light in 1977, 5 years before it eventually launched Bud Light. It was their original light beer. It's okay. You got 2 more. Here's your second question.
Okay.
Which of the following is not a nickname for Natural Light? A, Natty Light. B, Shore Champagne. C, Fratty Light. Or D, Flatty Light.
I'm going to probably go with B, because I'm sure college kids will just name anything that rhymes.
Are you sure?
No, not in the slightest.
Help him out, folks. Help him out.
Anybody know?
Shore Champagne.
Shore Champagne.
Yeah, it's
The Shore Champagne.
I'm pretty sure that's a real one.
That's because the people that drink it, when they go, they'll get it, and they go to a lovely, beach area, and then she'll say, "Is this champagne?" He's like, "Sure, champagne."
Shore Champagne.
Sure. I thought you said we were having champagne. Sure, champagne.
I mean, Chris, to be honest, this is kind of a trick question.
It is a trick question because they all
suck.
No,
they're
all
all-
answers are.
All answers
Correct.
are true.
They're true.
Oh,
You got
okay,
it.
okay.
Got it. Woo. Yes, all of them are nicknames for Natural Light, although I had not ever heard of Shore Champagne. So
That's a new one.
It's from the Jersey Shore.
yeah.
He Googled them all.
Yeah.
Or just like Bush has that Bush latte thing. And I'm like, where did that come from? Bush latte.
Right. So I'll give you a hint for this third question. Remember the answer to the second question. Here is your third question.
Which of the following statements is not true about Natural Light? In 2011, 2 cans of Natty Light were launched from Earth via a helium balloon and traveled to an altitude of 90,000 feet. Or B, in 2008, Natty Light earned a bronze medal at the World Beer Cup for Best American Style Light Lager. Or C, in honor of the Washington Nationals making its first ever appearance in the 2019 World Series, Natty Light released a limited edition hard seltzer called Nationals Light. Could it be that all of these things happened and we should all go home and be stupider for it?
Starting to wonder. I think they probably all did happen, personally.
They did. You are correct. Whoa. It's coming in the end for Anita. Yes, they all are true, proving once again that Natty Light is an award-winning beer, knocking it out of the park and into the Natosphere. Dave, how did Reese do on our quiz?
Well, with a little help from his friends, 2 out of 3, that ain't bad.
Hey,
Been told that before.
that's a win. Congratulations, Anita. Reese has won you a prize, free beer and a pint glass. Reese, it has been a true pleasure talking with you and learning your story and the exciting things happening at Natural 20 Beer. Thank you so much for joining us on Not My Beer.
Thank you for having me.
That wraps up the first part of our show. We'll now take a break and be back in a few with Tim and Dave and Reese and an audience contester for a little game we call Small Beer.
Welcome back to the Brewhouse stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington. This is Wheat Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast. I'm Dave Basaraba, and here again is your host, Chris Cindric!
Well, thank you, Dave. And now the game that tests your beer brain. It's called Small Beer. We've asked an audience member to step up to the challenge. Hello and welcome. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Julian, and I'm also a nerd. So I think I'm in the right
My people.
Yep. I'm a nerd who loves beer. I've been to Mountain Lakes and Nat 20 multiple times, and I've loved everything that I've had there. So.
And are you, when you go to Natural 20, are you gaming? Were you there? Do you do board games and such?
Not yet, but I've enjoyed the beer.
So you nerd out more on the beer.
Yes.
That's the big thing.
So wait, you just said you've been to Mountain Lakes and Natural 20, and you've loved everything you had there. Which one are you talking about?
True.
This is another trick question.
Okay.
I've loved everything I've had in both places.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Well, welcome to the show, Julian. Here's what we're going to do at this point in the show. Dave is going to read you 5 beer-related questions. If you can correctly answer 4 of the 5 questions, you will be a winner, which is free beer and a pint glass. So, Julian, in this segment of Small Beer, your questions deal with beer drinking games. Is that a specialty of yours?
From time to time.
Okay. Specifically, we will read you the definition of a beer drinking game, and then you need to identify the game correctly. And if you do, you will score a point. Are there any questions?
Nope.
Are you ready to play?
Yes.
Here is your first question.
This is a drinking game that involves players bouncing a coin off a table in an attempt to have it land in the cup.
Quarters.
Yeah, there you go.
Very little hesitation.
Yes.
This man's played a drinking game a time or two.
Except when I was a kid, we were pretty poor, so it was called penny. So, you know.
I'm not very good at it.
I played a lot of quarters in college, and I don't remember any of it because I was also very bad at it.
It was kind of the game when I was in college. Like, it was in the 80s. That was, everybody played. And we had another game called Chandeliers. And you would put, and this is back when you used to have the beer in the cup, and then people would grab the quarter out, and then you'd have to drink it.
Yeah, pre-COVID, we used to let that money go right into the drinking.
I was a rich kid. We played $50.
Yeah. 50-cent beat. Yeah. And then we'd roll it off the nose, and then we had a chandelier game, and it was like one cup in the middle and then like 5 around it, and then you're playing.
Who could get it in there first?
And you hit any one of them, and you make people drink.
That's
and
right.
You keep going until you miss.
Yeah.
And so the first person going has the advantage of all 6 glasses, and then it diminishes down and becomes harder and harder.
Well, and I used to show up at people's houses in college, and you want to play quarters? Yeah, sure, yeah, down, totally. And then I'd end up drinking all the beer, and they're like, "You're the loser."
I don't think that's how that works.
I'm winning.
I'm
What are
winning.
you talking about?
Thanks a lot. Have a good night. I'll see you next week.
Here is your second question.
In this drinking game, players throw a ping pong ball across the table with the intent of landing the ball in a cup of beer on the other end.
Pong. Yep.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Beer pong.
Oh, yeah!
You are correct. Now, this wasn't around when I was in school, but now I think that was is it people currently playing? Were there a lot of people
Because when
here?
you were in school, ping pong hadn't been
No,
invented
we
yet.
it just basically, but we didn't have beer pong. It wasn't a thing.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't, I don't know.
I mean, I played beer pong when I was in college, but me and my roommate couldn't afford a kitchen table, so we played on 2 TV trays across the living room.
Oh.
We played beer bocce, but we broke all the cups.
I like Reese's story. That just explains why he's an entrepreneur. He's like, we'll make it through, man. If we need beer pong, we'll do what it takes.
That's right. That's right. Well, here's your third question.
This game is popular in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. It's a race among teams that consist of at least 2 people carrying a crate of beer, the contents of which must be consumed prior to crossing the finish line. Good luck with this.
This is a hard one. But remember, you have 4 out of 5. So.
And we're looking for...
Did you ever see the movie?
We're looking for 2 possible...
I can't pronounce the answer, let alone tell you what it is.
Did you ever see the movie Another Round with was it Mads Mikkelsen? Yeah. They play this in the very beginning.
I'm going to give you a hint.
He's from Denmark.
It rhymes with Kostenlauf.
Kostenlauf?
That's correct. He got it. Wow. How did you know that? So this is
We've
kinda
got a
cool.
ringer. Who brought this guy?
This is when I look at America and then I look at European countries and I think they just do everything a little bit more hardcore and better when it comes to beer.
Yeah.
So this is a tradition.
No, if they did beer pong in Europe, it would be like, make a ping pong table. Last one done drinks this entire case of beer.
This is a game that started from the understanding I have to where people would walk to Oktoberfest or a beer festival, which might be 5 to 12K away. So they said, hey, while we're walking there, why don't we drink a crate of beer and then we're going to make a game out of it, and whoever gets there first wins. And so typically you're running between 5 to 12K, which would be like doing Bloomsday with me and you, and we have a case of beer between us, and we've got to finish before we're done.
I think traditionally the losing team has to join the army and invade Poland. Right.
It's also called Bierkastenrennen, which just means beer case running in Germany.
Laufen means run, so
Yeah.
I thought it had something to do with Rennen or Laufen or something.
Yeah,
To Lauf.
Kostenlauf.
Kostenlauf is the case,
Drink and run.
case run. Well, here is your fourth question.
This drinking game is played with 2 dice. When a 3 is rolled, there tends to be consequences.
This might be an older one. We played this when I was in college. 2
Well,
dice.
that was back when high school was called college.
That was. We used to call it the university.
I don't know this one, and I can't wait to hear how this one's played.
Is it called dice?
No. You're going to get this one wrong, but it's okay. because you have 3 out of right. Like, how did you get Kostenlauf? That was crazy.
That's crazy. Wait till we edit it out so it sounds like
Yeah,
you just got it.
Exactly. This is a game called 3-Man. Does anybody play 3-Man? So it was a 2-die game, and then you would designate.
I played that.
Somebody as a 3-man, and they would be, if any time somebody rolled a 3, they had to drink. And if you rolled double 3s, it was worse. And then they rolled, and if they roll a 3, they can designate somebody else to be 3-man. So you're basically rolling the die, and then people are being designated 3-man, which is basically the sucker drinking all the beer. And that's how the game was generally played.
I went to Catholic school for college. It was
Oh,
we called it Trinity.
Well, here is your 5th question.
This is a party game in which players conceal a coin in their palm as they slap it on a table with their bare hands. The goal is to identify which hand the coin is under. This one's actually famous worldwide. I've played this in pubs all over, but they do not call it this.
So basically, we'd have a team. So if the 3 of us were on a team, one of us would have a coin in the hand. And then this team would yell up something, and then down something, and we'd all slap our hands on the counter, and they would have to choose which hand the coin was under. So you're trying to make it slap flat without them understanding. Does that make sense?
I think he's going to get
Sounds
it.
like an old people game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
It is.
It is, yep. Old people like beer, though.
And it's an old name.
I feel like my grandpa was talking about something called Up Jenkins.
Up Jenkins. That's correct. The answer is Up Jenkins. Well, Dave, how did Julian do on our quiz?
4 out of 5, and that's a win.
Whoa. Well, Julian, thank you for playing. We'll now take a break and be back in a few with Reese, Tim, and Dave in a little game we call Brewers on Tap.
Man, let's play some Up Jenkins. Welcome back to the Brewhouse stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington. This is Wheat Don't Tell Me, Spokane's craft beer live audience show and podcast. I'm Dave Basaraba, and once again, your host, Chris Sindrick!
And now for a game we call Brewers on Tap. Throughout the night, our audience members have had a chance to write down a question for one, a few, or all of our panelists. We've chosen a smackerel of them to ask our panel to tap into some of that brewer and owner knowledge. Let's get started, shall we? Here's a question for you. What are your flagship beers, ones that you almost always have on tap?
I'm guessing that question's probably directly towards me. So we have a few flagship beers. We've actually just added... Hello? We actually just added a new one. So the one that really got us kind of on the map is Kazad. It is our Scottish ale. It comes in just under 8%. It is by far the longest running beer we've had. It was the second brew I ever made as a home brewer. And so we've just kind of tweaked the recipe going forward and commercially to being something that's able to be made on a commercial level, because scaling up from homebrew is obviously quite the thing.
It's only $5,000 worth of grain.
Yeah. And so besides that, we are just actually phasing out one beer. It was called Perception Check. It was a pale ale. But we're phasing into a Quake Blonde, which is the Planeswalker. That's got me really excited. Great like cereal taste to it. We have one in every category. The Flying Bison, which is an Avatar The Last Airbender reference. That's right. You're wearing the shirt, buddy. Avatar The Last Airbender reference. It is our IPA, and we use a huge amount of Cryo Amarillo in that beer, so it really like pops. And then we are finally, after a couple years of like going back and forth, have decided on a staple stout that we're always going to have on. It's called the Shadowfell. It's a breakfast stout, maple syrup, brown sugar, coffee, vanilla, and it is killer. And now that we're brewing on a 5-barrel system and compared to a 3-barrel system, it is so much better. Like when you change systems to that kind of size, you really understand what the pressure difference, like physical pressure difference on like the yeast does. And so it's a really well-developed flavor. And our plan is actually to throw some into some maple syrup bourbon barrels here pretty quick and throw that in there for a year and start pulling some of that out.
Yes. Have you thought about... Yeah.
Getting some applause.
Have you thought about, like, maybe another adjunct that you could fit into it?
I mean,
Peanut butter
well, okay, so
or egg yolk? I'm just thinking breakfast.
Well, no, you're not wrong though. We have our staples, but we also have like a very strong seasonal lineup. And one of the ones we do seasonally is the Reese's Puff Porter. That's a collaboration with Genus Brewing, also out in the valley. And
Never heard of them.
We legitimately put in like 50 pounds of Reese's Puff cereal, which is awesome.
Cereal doesn't weigh much.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of cereal.
It's a lot of homeless bags. Do you use the homeless bag cereal?
No, we
The
use,
ones on the bottom shelf, that are not in a box.
I mean, we
they're just
have in the
there.
past. I think this last batch we did purely like the true Reese's brand. So
Okay, all right.
we did change it to a C, so we're not going to get sued.
Flaunting it. Did you pick it up in your Tesla?
No, I pick it up at Walmart, and it's literally my favorite day of the year because going out with 2 carts of Reese's Puff cereal is the best conversations I have all year long.
I can't imagine the looks you get. Wow.
Cereal's gotten expensive. It's like $7 or $8 a box now.
Is it really?
It's not cheap. Like,
Yeah, it's craziness. Yeah.
Hey, now, for people that don't know, like myself, Kazad is obviously named after...
It's a Lord of the Rings reference.
Yeah, right.
So in the Lord of the Rings, you probably have heard Khazad Dûn. That's what is reference to the Mines of Moria. But in Dwarvish, Kazad actually means the word dwarf. So if you Khazad Dûn actually translates to dwarf hole.
Oh.
So, I mean, take that as you will.
Right.
I thought it was Kazad Rashad, the old commentator on NBC for sports.
Kajad Rashad.
Yeah.
That's right.
I went with the dwarf hole reference.
Oh. Everything has to be sexual.
That's right.
Absolutely.
What D&D class do you like the most?
That's not even like a hesitation question. It's a bard. Bards are by far my... So growing up playing D&D, it's really easy to get in the habit of I want to make the character that can hit the hardest and move the fastest and kill the most guys. That only becomes fun for so long. What becomes fun is when you get into a situation and you're like, the dragon is about to attack you and kill you, and you're like, I seduce the dragon. Okay, roll for it. I seduce the dragon. I roll I roll a 30 on the seduction check, and me and the dragon now have 14 children and live happily on.
So you look for the dragon hole?
Absolutely.
The dragon hole?
Yeah. That's how you used to do. So the bard would be like on The Witcher? Like the bard?
So a bard is a character that is 100% focused on its charisma. So they do have like magical abilities that relate to them performing, but really a bard is the best liar in the game.
Okay.
So my favorite character I ever played is the backstory I told my DM is I am a gnome, but 20 years ago I was a golden retriever and somebody polymorphed me into a gnome permanently. And so I played my golden retriever as a bard. And so I spent most of the game running around finding things and bringing them to other characters. And like when they'd all go to sleep at night, I'd like curl up at the feet of somebody's bed.
You could morph that into like some of those horror movies. It's like Freddy Krueger's coming to get you. And, you seduce him. See how see how it works, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
What would the beer be for that class then? What's a bard drinking, I guess?
I mean, probably a fruited sour.
A fruited sour, kind of like the apricot sour?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
theme. So EW is a bardic university.
Yeah,
right?
I love the apricot sour. Apricot sour, apricot sour.
We didn't.
Yeah, or something along those lines. Something that is not your typical beer, very flavored in a different way. So, in terms of what we've recently had on tap, our Flossed in Paradise would fall into that. We just, as of today, finished our beer for the EW Get Lit Festival. Actually, we did a Cherry Blossom Blonde that was really good. That was the Wither and Bloom, which is another Dungeons and Dragons reference.
Here's a question: Are both the Natural 20 locations going to be? Are they family friendly and also pet friendly?
Both of them are 100% family friendly, from open to close. Bring your kids in there. They can, in fact, even sit at the bar.
How much beer do they have to drink?
At least 2 gallons, generally speaking. We want them to weigh twice as much when they leave.
Yep. Have to drink their weight.
Yeah. In terms of pet friendly, the patios are currently pet friendly. Unfortunately, because we have a restaurant license, the pets can't come inside unless they're service animals. However, if you're paying attention to the Spokane Regional Health District legislation, there is something on the books that they're trying to get it passed. So if you're a brewery, you can have dogs come inside. So please pay attention to that. I would love that.
Oh.
I own 2 dogs, and my folks own 2 dogs who live with us. So I'm definitely a dog-friendly person, you could say. So,
but you let kids in.
Yeah, they're kind of like pets. But yes,
I know. I want to talk to the health department and be like, really, like little grubby kids or dogs. You're worried about the dogs?
So, our general policy is anyone acting like a drunk adult has to leave. So if your kids are acting like a drunk adult, they're going to be asked to leave the same way as if you're acting like a child as a drunk adult, you're going to be asked to leave. So
that's a great policy.
It kind of solves all the problems.
Yep.
Here's a question for anybody. What is your favorite drinking game? Yeah.
King's Cup.
Oh, yeah.
okay.
That's
King's
a good
Cup.
one.
Yep. I like that I get to play like 6 drinking games in one drinking game.
We had a game called Asshole in college.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know.
We
Yeah.
called it Cindric.
And there it is.
Oh, he got it
Feels so
in.
good.
Oh,
Feels so good.
that's
Thank
harsh.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personal foul, clipping.
My favorite was called Beer Die. And it was a table, and you have a dice, and everyone has you have a cup in front of you, and so the 2 people are trying to toss the die back and forth into the cup. But if it hits the table and bounces off, you have to catch it, kind of like a goalie. And if you play to 5, and then you lose. Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's a heavy drinking game.
And
It's just called-
I found that the more you drink, the easier it is to catch that small little cube.
Yeah, you get really good at it if you play a lot, and then people are like, how do they catch that?
And it's beer die.
Beer Die. Yeah, you can look it up. It's pretty common.
Okay. What would be your crit success beer?
A what?
I'm assuming they mean like what would be my critically successful beer, crit success. Again, like a natural 20 on a dice is a critical hit.
Oh.
That's the Wi-Fi password for all of our public Wi-Fi at both locations, by the way. Critical
So
hit.
if you're just
all
cruising by
lowercase.
later tonight and you want to sit in the parking lot,
Yeah. Anyways, our critical success beer, probably the Floston Paradise. It was a beer that I had made home brewing. My mom, who was not a beer drinker and lived next door at the time, said, I love that you make beer, but I would really like you to make something for me. And I said, cool, well, I will make a beer that kind of goes for you. And they have massive raspberry plants in our backyard. So I went and said, cool, I'm going to take like half these raspberries. And she said, you're going to take half of them? But I took half those raspberries, threw them in a beer, and that became the process long term for the Floston Paradise. We throw something like 200 pounds of those into every batch, 200 pounds of raspberries into every batch of it we do. And that's where most of the flavor comes from. We're not using any kind of like syrups or artificial flavors. It's real fruit going in there, which was actually another like kind of a real inspiration for like the Natural 20 name, as we try to focus on like natural flavors as much as we possibly can. Nice. So I would say that beer 100% would be our critical success beer.
Success beer.
To the degree of like our normal scale for like we come out with a new beer and how quickly it sells in the Valley Taproom. We usually go through a keg like within the first 10 days. In the 3 weeks since we've come out with this batch of Floston Paradise, we've sold 5 kegs. So it's like almost double anything we've done.
Our critical success beer would have to be the Word to Your Mother Vanilla Cream. Now, Eddie, people who knew us from the beginning, Eddie used to be, our taproom manager. He came to us with a vanilla beer that he had tasted from, Mother Earth.
California or something.
No, Mother Earth Brewing in Idaho, right? Mother Earth.
I thought it was like a Cali Cream or something.
It was called Cali Creamin'.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But we
that might be
modeled
right.
we
Yeah.
modeled it after that. We made a cream ale with vanilla and lactose, and it satisfies everyone. It satisfies like super hopheads. It satisfies people who don't even quote unquote like beer.
Yeah.
Here,
the
try
people are
this.
like, I don't like beer, and they're like into it.
And guys come in and go, "What's your hoppiest beer?" And they have a pint of that, and then we go, "Try this," and they're like, "Oh, I'll have 2 more pints of that."
Yeah.
That's the critical success beer.
This is for Nat 20. I'm a big Halo fan. Played all the console games, and read all the books. I was stoked when I saw you made a Halo-inspired beer, but then immediately bummed when I saw that it was an IPA. Would you ever make a maltier Halo beer or like a Sangali Blood Sour? Did I say that right? That's the question.
I mean, I again, it's an
Is this from Logan?
I subscribe to an anti-gatekeeping like philosophy. So yes, 100%. Like I don't say no to anything. Like I'm not a Star Trek fan, but I'll make a Star Trek beer. Like that's a thing. So yes, and honestly, I'm a malty beer fan. I would drink 4 malty beers before I have an IPA. So I'm sure it's coming down the pike. It's one of those things that I looked at our board and said, hey, we need another IPA. And it came out on the same day as the Halo series. So I was like, I know what I'm doing.
That's like Tom Cruise. He saw that we were releasing a session IPA for the summer called Maverick. And he was like, I will call the movie that.
Logan, that question reminds me of like organic chemistry. It's like the question, I don't even know one word in the question.
Halo.
Halo
I'm
is
thinking
a-
Angels.
Halo is a video game.
Oh.
It was the original game that made the Xbox very popular.
Huh.
Xbox. See, I gave up at Super Nintendo.
Hazy IPA.
We had in
is
television.
a word
Yeah, when my thumbs got...
Remember that?
In television,
Yeah.
and you had the little
Yeah,
disc.
I know.
And then your thumbs would get all sweaty, and the disc would be like you playing.
Oh
and
my
you're trying
gosh, we used to
run.
play this game in our house. It was my
yeah.
dad would yell at me to put something good on or he'll be angry. I love that game. I just keep turning the channel. Is this good, Dad? Is this good? No, I'm still angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this is for Reese, and I guess you have to do this. If everyone on stage was a D&D character, which ones would they be? So you got a class. You would be the bard.
Oh my gosh.
What is everybody else? Do you have
Dude, classify
classification?
us.
Oh, so I just classify you guys?
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
you're the DM.
Oh, God.
Oh, wait. We don't get to pick. We don't
Dungeon,
pick
No, he's-
Dungeon Master.
He's stating
For those-
what we are. You're going to tell us what we would be.
No,
Yeah.
actually, I'm,
Oh,
more,
okay.
I'm more in favor with you telling me what you should be.
No,
'cause that's,
no, I don't.
No, because
No.
that's what
his
Dungeons and
mic on.
Dragons is all about. Like, it's you get to be
Do we get
who
to
you
make 'em
want
up?
to be. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, well, I had this superhero question once, and I thought a cool superpower would be like, you show up in any situation, and everyone's just like, it would be coolness. Like, you're cool, and then everything that's heated, everyone's just like, that's cool. And they stop fighting, and everyone's just mellow and cool.
Sounds like
So-
you're a bard, too.
A what?
You're a bard. You're a bard. You want...
There's a D&D for that?
Yeah, well, it's the charismatic character. Everyone wants to be happy, and you want to talk people into good things. And
You got
yeah.
charisma.
Yeah. Honestly,
I think it's
would say
charisma.
when it comes down to it, most brewers, I
Oh,
would
I
say,
love
are,
chorizo.
are probably bards. Like
Bards.
Really?
Yeah, they are. They're artisans, if nothing else. Like
Okay.
yeah, they
Right.
they create things.
Right.
I
don't know
some,
enough about
I'd say
the-
some of them maybe are like wizards. You
What
know,
are the
like
other
brewery
classes?
wizards.
You got bards, wizards.
What edition do you want to hear?
I don't know.
Oh, man.
So I'm a 3-5 person. So like going alphabetically, I believe I'll try not to miss anything. You have a barbarian. That's kind of self-explanatory.
Kind of like that one.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and then you have a bard. You have a cleric, which is kind of like a holy wizard. You know, they cast spells based on like their divine relationship.
So far, that's Chris.
I kind of like that.
There's a druid. Yeah. So I mean, like, if you're at Four-Eyed Guys, the Four-Eyed Guys brewers are druids, 100%. Yeah.
Are there any
Yeah.
that aren't very smart?
Yeah, the barbarian.
Chris.
Yeah. No, that's what you said you wanted to be. You did. You just said that.
But I'm like a smart one.
Explain to me why the Four-Eyed Guys are druids. Because my only understanding of druids is like they get their air in a can from the old Mel Brooks Spaceballs movie.
That's a druid?
Those are the druids.
I'm a barbarian, but only because I'm being ironic. So I'm really cool.
yeah.
you know,
It's
smart.
like the little guy that they call Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Right.
I'm going to say that they're druids. Have you been to their tap room?
Yeah.
Look at all the plants that are growing in there.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that's how I feel. So
There you
druids
go.
are like nature fighters. Is really what it comes down to.
Nature
All
fighters?
right. So
Yeah.
that, okay, we're
Yeah.
only on D. What are we?
Fighter is the next one, which
All
is about as self-explanatory as you can possibly
Right.
get. Hoping I'm not missing anything here.
G H I J K LMN.
There's a monk.
A monk.
Monks are cool.
I'd be the
Monks are
monk.
unarmed
Not a
fighters.
Yes, I want to be a monk.
Monks are cool.
That's what I would be. And I would drink saisons.
If you want to play a Jedi in D&D,
I'm Chris Cindric. I own a saison.
Yeah, that's how I would talk.
Chris-
all throughout the fucking game.
Chris, come back to the game.
I rolled a natural 20.
I'd roll a natural 20 and everyone will drink saison.
yeah, the monks are like they're unarmed fighters mostly.
Oh, yeah.
They have no arms.
Yeah,
It's just a flesh wound.
They can kick people.
Come at me.
They're good at kicking.
It came unraveled on the last question.
So monks, rangers, which are they're like the trackers or the wilderness guys. They specialize in like 2 weapons or bows and arrows. Rogues, which are like your thieves, like they're the crafty individuals. Trying to make sure I'm not forgetting anything.
S-T-U.
Sorcerers,
Okay.
and wizards are the last 2.
Okay.
It's kind of a fine line difference. Sorcerers get their magic from innate ability, whereas wizards learn their magic through study.
Cool. That's pretty good. That was a great overview.
I hope I didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
I always thought I was a wizard, but I think I'm a sorcerer.
I'm a monk.
It's crazy.
Frickin' monk.
Yep. Let's go drink some more Belgians.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for tonight. Thank you. Thanks to our special guest, Reese Carlson from Natural 20 Brewing.
Thank you.
And to Dave Boss Robin, Tim Hilton of Mountain Lakes Brewing Company. Thanks to our wonderful servers, Brian and Tom. And thanks to all of you for being here. I am Chris Cindric. Good night and joy be to you all.
Drink up.